Good evening, Shortcuts. This is Stephen here with video 1 for your Shortcuts list. Price list will be published 9 p.m. Sydney time this Wednesday, the 19th. If you would like to be on the price list, drop me an email, shortcutsrecords@gmail.com. Firstly, for the next few weeks, I'm going to mention, for all of you who are local on the Northern Beaches, I've got my first record fair. It's happening at the Hotel Staying on the Manly Corso on Sunday, March 16th at 11 a.m. If you come early, you will be entered into a free vinyl draw. There you go. All right, so this is the classic rock, new wave, pop list with some Shortcuts royalty toward the end as well. This is a really tough first choice for the kickoff record. Now that I've made my choice, I still immediately regret it. I might well swap. Oh gosh, what am I gonna do? You know what? I'm gonna stick with what I got. All right, first record that I'm going to talk about is Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. Was it third or fourth Black Sabbath record? This is the Japanese first press. There's the inner. It is a gatefold in amazing condition. Obviously, you can see the original Obi. It also comes with now I think this was either the waiting pass or a ticket to a show. I need to do the translation actually. So it's got lots of cool stuff. It's in fantastic condition. For those of you who haven't seen, the original Japanese press came on the spaceship label RJ5113. Goes without saying, I have never had one of these before. There's two of them came in the box. I'm keeping one. They sound amazing. Honestly, brutal sound quality. Just huge. I'm thrilled with them. This record is often lauded in the top 2, 3, 4 Sabbath records of all eras. The original Aussie era, then the Dio era, and then back to Aussie, and then others. And I think part of the reason why is that it is probably their most dynamic record. I mean, you've got the acoustic flourishes of fluff, and you've got really cool keyboard textures, but the whole way through, it is like Ozzy and Tony Iommi are just two sides of the coin. The sonic tandem that they have is really something. Sabracadabra, A National Acrobat, the title track. There isn't a weak link. It's an amazing record, and you're gonna have to trust me on this. Those of you who've been in my place recently, I've been playing and highlighting the difference between the modern digital represses of Black Sabbath and the original analog masters from either Japan or the UK. And the difference is astronomical. It is like you are listening to a different band. Please don't waste your money on these marketing gimmicks around splatter Sabbath, whether it be Mass Reality, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. The one exception, and it is a masterful exception, is what Rhino High Fidelity did with the debut album last year. It's amazing. I actually hold in high regard what Divine Me Please did with Master of Reality as well. Although I'm still not convinced that it's better than the Japanese NEMS press of Master of Reality that I have. It's pretty close though. But in general, these UK and Japanese presses absolutely annihilate these modern represses. The difference is just kind of embarrassing. And that is a wonderful record. Now, you might think, what could possibly be on this list that could compete with Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, an original 1973 masterpiece? Well, I'm going to the 90s, and this is a modern repress that I highly regard. It is the 3LP recently released repress of Neil Young and Crazy Horse's Ragged Glory. Now, this is sealed, and that is because my copy I got a couple of years back, because this record, Freedom and Weld, were released as a box set as part of Neil Young's official series release. And now they're releasing a couple of the records standalone. The original Ragged Glory from 1990 was a long record. It was quite a long record. It's 50 plus minutes. And inexplicably, it was squeezed onto a single LP. What was, I mean, the LP therefore inevitably felt quiet and constrained. And that's a real shame, because this record is as unapologetic as Neil Young gets. It is a blast of noisy, fuzzy garage rock. It is a complete melee a lot of the times. There, from the starting thrash of Country Home, through Effin' Up, through The Days That Used to Be, Love to Burn. I love every single track. And the great thing about this on a triple LP is that these 8 to 10 minute tracks are given space to really groove. The bass is fantastic. It is just the only way to listen to such a heavy record. What's really great about this name, Ragged Glory, is that behind the heaviness and the groove is some of the most beautiful guitar playing I have ever heard. Neil Young is on fire. And, I know a lot of people think that Freedom was the record that kind of announced himself and got him back in the fold, which was a 1989 record. But this one in 1990 is up there with the best that Neil Young ever did. And that's saying something. It was recorded in Neil Young's barn on his farm. The tracks, they just played and played, and then they were edited down over and over. Love and Only Love. They've got these almost Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young harmonies on the choruses, but then these crashing solos. I mean, I love it. It is so great. And so, what a thrill it was for Neil Young to be rehabilitated in the way he was, really, after the 80s being a very strange decade for him. This led to Mirrorball with Pearl Jam, which is a fantastic record. It led to Harvest Wind. It led to Sleeps with Angels. It was brilliant. And I love this pressing. Cannot recommend it highly enough. Just superb. All right, let's get on to something very, very different. This is the Japanese first press of Construction Time Again by the mighty Depeche Mode. This is in fantastic condition. This record, I don't know where it sits in the Depeche Mode canon. I can't quite work this band out. You've got records like Violator and Songs of Faith and Devotion, which are kind of heavy, almost rocky, and then the early synth pop records, and then you've got this period in between with music for the masses, Construction Time Again, Black Celebration, where those two worlds are kind of coming together. This record sounds a little bit more industrial than the previous records. Definitely more political, but then only marginally so. I mean, you've got a track like Everything Counts, which is an absolute earworm, but you can hear the political and experimental thought behind it. Really talented musicians, obviously Dave Gann and Martin Gore. They're just really cool, but it still is moody, but the moodiness with this very clever melodic sensibility. It is industrial synth pop of the top echelon. They're an incredibly influential band. I suspect there are many of you out there going, Steve, what the hell are you talking about? That's their best album. It is one of those bands where there's 6 records that people could legitimately say, well, that's my favorite. What the hell are you talking about? It's just really cool. And you can kind of see on the sleeve here, hammering this idea of progress and struggle and industry is what was on their mind. And there's all sorts of really interesting samples and trains and pipelines and all sorts. But it's a great record, and so therefore totally deserves to be on the list. Now for something completely different. I've got some garage rock for you all. This is Some Kind of Nut by Wray. Now, you might know Wray from his soundtracks. I'm pretty sure it was Quentin Tarantino that had him on, was it Reservoir Dogs? Anyway, the track, of course, that most of you will know will be Rumble. One of the great kind of guitar instrumentals in that kind of garage scene that there ever was. But Wray made quite a lot of music in the 60s and 70s, and there's a very stark change. The 70s, he became almost like a countrified, album-oriented artist, because a lot of his records were made pretty independently. He never really had much money. He would make them in his own yard, playing all the instruments himself. But in the 60s and kind of in the 50s, he was a guitar gun for hire, and he played in all sorts of different bands. I'm still struggling with a cold, so let me just take a quick drink. So in this compilation, you've got Wray and the Raymond, you've got the Fender Benders, you've got Bunker Hill, the Moon Men, songs like Hungry Child, Growling Guts, Genocide, The Earth is Crying. This is as loud and kind of caustic as garage rock gets, and it is really lays down the legend of Wray. Very, very raw and groovy. And so I've got a few of his records. I've never had any Wray on the list. You know, I suppose I don't really think of shortcuts leaning into the kind of lo-fi garage rock so much, but there's a few on this list today that certainly fall into this sphere, and they're pretty great, and they sound brilliant on vinyl. You just got to turn them up as loud as you possibly can. You know, when the Cramps and punk rock were doing what they were doing, a lot of them had Wray records, including a lot of tracks on that compilation. All right, let's go on again for something really different. How about some post-punk? Here's a record not many of you will know. This is called The Absolute Game by the Skids. This is the Japanese first press of the third album by the Skids, and you might recognize this name here, Stuart Adamson. He went on, of course, to form Big Country, and is a Scottish music legend in many respects. And the Skids were, I think, if not his first band, certainly, one of his earliest incarnations. A very ambitious and interesting band. This particular record, probably their most polished. I think certainly their most critically successful. But don't let this fool you. This record still has crazy soaring guitar from Adamson. He is a really, really good player. And the lead singer, this guy, Richard Jobson, really quite dramatic, a big sense of grandeur. The production quality on this record's pretty awesome. I really like the rhythm section as well. Very highly regarded. The critics at the time just absolutely loved this. It had a couple of hit singles. I think probably the biggest hit was Circus Games. I remember Circus Games. It was a top 10 hit when I was growing up. And yeah, really, really interesting, different record. As always on these lists, I try and put something new as well as some things that are coming a little bit later that you will recognize. All right, I'm going to give you something new again. This is Live in Tokyo by Psychic TV. Now, I suspect there are one or two of you out there now who are going, holy crap, he's got Psychic TV on the list. Well, they are one of the great cult bands. You're talking sound collage, almost what in places sounds like it should be soundtracks to kind of horror movies. But don't be fooled. Very unpredictable, very edgy, but really cool and melodic, amazing samples. And what happened with this series of records, and there's a bunch of notes on the back here that describes it. This record is a document of Psychic TV live, edited and shaped to capture a moment in time and those feelings and impressions connected with the moment. So this record was spliced together from 4 concerts, the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th of January, 1986. And you know what? A lot of the time, you cannot tell that this is a live record. The production quality is crazy. There are only a few occasions when the crowd noise really kicks in. And think of it like when Pearl Jam decided in the 90s that they were going to release all of their concerts to kind of thwart bootleggers. This is something like that. They basically created a series of records based in different cities where they played concerts. And yeah, it's quite discombobulating in places, really groovy in others, quite rare and different and interesting, and therefore very much worth its place on the list. Talking about rare and different, I had Mark Foggo on the list last week, and I realized I've got a few Dutch, German members of the club. I'm going to put this band up. This is Struts. Now, don't think of Struts as the UK or British kind of band of recent times. Struts here is a German kind of punk psychobilly band, or maybe Dutch, I'm not quite sure, but this is a Dutch first press from 1990 of probably their greatest album, Kick It. And so for those of you who are into your European kind of psychobilly and punk from the 90s, this is Kick It by Struts. Okay, I've got a few records here now that are some of my favorite Japanese releases, and then I've got a few that are kind of interesting, kind of classic rock choices. Many of you have picked this up. This is the Japanese compilation of singles from Japan. Ironically, the first track of which is called Life in Tokyo, European Sun, State Line, Unconventional, Quiet Life, and I second that emotion. On blue translucent vinyl with this really cool oversized label. This thing sounds amazing. The sound quality is just cracking on this. Love it to bits. I know there's a bunch of you who've got it already. It sounds great, looks great. Japan, the singles on translucent blue vinyl. David Sylvian's amazing vocals. I think Japan are a really interesting album band as well, but that compilation, you don't need to get much more than that. I think it's superb. In fact, the mix of Life in Tokyo that's on this compilation is different to those on other Japan records I have and is better. Okay, I'm gonna accelerate through the rest of these because some of these are records that you will know. I have the Japanese first press of Invisible Touch by Genesis with Obi. Tonight, 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 Land of Confusion, Into Deep, hit after hit after hit, produced by Genesis and Hugh Padgham. This was a masterclass in sleek, radio-friendly pop rock. Absolutely dominated the year. Was it 88, 86, 87? It was a commercial behemoth. It just smashed through everything. Genesis, Invisible Touch. And talking about records that just owned their era, what about this? 4 by Foreigner. A little bit earlier in the 80s, this is 1981, and this is a powerhouse arena rock, just classic. Nightlife, Waiting for a Girl Like You, production by Mutt Lange, who went on to create monster records with Depeche Mode, or with Def Leppard, amongst others. Weeks and weeks and weeks at number one. It's Japanese first press. We have Captain Fantastic, Elton John, and that includes one of my favorite little extras. The little scrapbook that came with this is just super cool, as well as being gotta be in his top 2 or 3 records. Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy from 1975 includes Somebody Saved My Life Tonight. Okay, we have the Japanese first press of Atom Heart Mother. Another one of these hypnosis, genuinely weird and silly covers. No band name, no album name. On the original first press was on the black Odeon label. I know there's a few of you out there who are gathering up your Japanese first presses. Here's another example. This cow, by the way, was called Lulubelle the Third, and she was photographed on a farm just outside London. Not the prettiest animal I've ever seen. I suppose that was a very deliberate choice by Pink Floyd. What a band. All right, now I have a really nice pressing of Sgt. Pepper. It's the AP8163 pressing. I have some Shortcuts royalty. I have Tusk, the Japanese first press, with Obi in brilliant condition. I have Toto 4 with Africa and some of the best kind of arena pop of the era. And finally, I have Michael Jackson's Thriller. Because it doesn't have an Obi, it is significantly cheaper than if you were buying it with an Obi, but it sounds just as good. There you have the pop, rock, new wave, punk list. I hope there was something new for you to explore, something for you to delve into, or something for you to reminisce about. As always, like, subscribe, leave me a comment. If you would like to be on the price list to buy these records, because all of these are for sale, then drop me a note, shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. Thank you so much if you made it this far. Love. Bye.